Admiral Kextera stared at the screen in front of her. The massive display showed empty space, but her sensors told a different story. Something was out there. Something that should not exist. She pressed a button on her control panel. Computer, scan again. Full spectrum analysis. The machine hummed for several seconds. Then words appeared on the screen, unknown energy signature detected. No match found in database. Kextera felt her heart skip a beat. In her 50 years of service to the Galactic Empire, she had never seen those words. The Empire's database contained information about every single species in the galaxy. Every ship design. Every weapon. Every piece of technology that had ever been created by any civilization. She tried again. Computer, expand search parameters. Include all historical records. Searching. Searching. No match found. The Admiral stood up from her chair. Her blue skin had turned pale. This was impossible. The Empire had been watching the galaxy for thousands of years. They knew about every planet that had life. They knew about every species that had learned to travel between stars. They had records of civilizations that had died out millions of years ago. Officer Zeln, she called to her aide. Come here immediately. The young officer rushed over. His 4 eyes were wide with curiosity. Yes, Admiral. Look at these readings. Tell me what you see. Zeln studied the data carefully. He was one of the smartest officers on the ship. If anyone could figure this out, it would be him. After several minutes, he looked up with confusion. Admiral, this makes no sense. The energy signature is completely unknown. The ship appears to be using some kind of propulsion system we have never seen before. But look at this. He pointed to a section of the data. The vessel seems primitive. Very basic construction. Simple materials. Yet it is moving faster than most of our scout ships. Kextera nodded grimly. That is exactly what worries me. How can something so basic move so fast? And why can't our computers identify it? She walked to the main communications panel. Get me a direct line to Emperor Vex Nal. Priority 1. The screen flickered and then showed the face of the most powerful being in the galaxy. Emperor Vex Nal had ruled for over 200 years. His red eyes had seen the rise and fall of countless civilizations. Nothing surprised him anymore. Or so everyone thought. Admiral Kextera, the Emperor said in his deep voice. This had better be important. I was in the middle of reviewing the conquest reports from Sector 7. Your Majesty, we have a situation. We have detected an unknown vessel entering our territory. Unknown as in completely unknown. Not in our records at all. The Emperor's expression changed. His eyes narrowed. That is impossible. Our database contains information about every spacefaring species in the galaxy. Yes, Your Majesty. That is what makes this so concerning. I am sending you the data now. Kextera pressed several buttons. The information flowed across space to the Emperor's palace on the capital world. She watched as his face grew more serious with each passing second. These readings. The Emperor said slowly. What am I looking at here? This ship appears to be made of materials we do not recognize. The energy output is unlike anything in our files. Yet the design looks so simple. Our scientists are baffled, Your Majesty. The vessel appears to be using chemical propulsion, but that should not allow for the speeds we are detecting. The hull composition is completely unknown. We cannot even determine what species built it. The Emperor was quiet for a long time. When he spoke again, his voice was filled with concern. Admiral, in all my years of rule, we have never encountered a species that was not already in our records. Our scouts have mapped every system within 1,000 light years. Our databases go back 10,000 years. I understand, Your Majesty. But the facts are clear. This ship does not match anything we know. It is heading directly toward our inner systems. We estimate it will reach the Colton system in 3 days. The Emperor's eyes flashed with anger. Unacceptable. We cannot allow an unknown threat to penetrate our territory. What do you recommend? Kexthera had been thinking about this since the moment they detected the ship. I believe we should deploy the Eternal Dominion to intercept. It is our most advanced battleship. If this unknown vessel proves hostile, the Eternal Dominion can destroy it easily. And if it proves friendly, then we can study it. Learn about this new species. Add them to our records where they belong. The Emperor nodded slowly. Very well. Deploy the Eternal Dominion immediately. But Admiral. Yes, Your Majesty. I want answers. I want to know who these beings are. I want to know where they came from. And I want to know how they managed to stay hidden from us for so long. Understood, Your Majesty. The connection ended. Kexthera immediately turned to her communications officer. Send word to Captain Morthack aboard the Eternal Dominion. Full battle readiness. They are to intercept the unknown vessel and determine its intentions. As the orders went out across the fleet, Kexthera returned to studying the mysterious readings. The unknown ship continued on its path, seemingly unaware that the most powerful military force in the galaxy was moving to intercept it. She had seen many strange things in her career. She had witnessed the destruction of entire worlds. She had seen species that could manipulate time itself. She had observed technologies that seemed like magic. But she had never seen anything that the Empire's computers could not identify. Every civilization left traces. Every species had patterns that could be recognized and catalogued. Every technology followed certain basic principles that their scientists understood. This ship followed none of those rules. As she watched the unknown vessel move deeper into Empire space, Admiral Kexthera felt something she had not experienced in decades: fear. Not fear for herself or her ship, but fear of the unknown. In a galaxy where the Empire knew everything about everyone, they had just discovered that they knew nothing about someone. And that someone was heading straight toward them. The hunt was about to begin. Captain Sarah Chen was drinking her morning coffee when the alarm started screaming. She nearly dropped her cup as the ship's emergency lights began flashing red throughout the bridge. Captain, to the bridge immediately, came the voice of her first officer through the speakers. Sarah ran through the corridors of the UES Defiant. The ship was humanity's first attempt at interstellar travel. It had taken 20 years to build and represented the best technology Earth could create. 200 crew members had volunteered for this mission into the unknown. Report, Sarah said as she reached the bridge. Lieutenant Commander Williams pointed at the main screen. Captain, we have a problem. A very big problem. Sarah looked at the display and felt her breath catch in her throat. A massive ship was approaching them. It was at least 10 times larger than the Defiant. Maybe more. The alien vessel was sleek and dark, with strange energy patterns flowing across its hull. How long have they been there? Sarah asked. They just appeared on our sensors 2 minutes ago. No warning. No gradual approach. They just materialized. Dr. James Park, the ship's science officer, was studying his instruments frantically. Captain, I'm reading energy levels that are off the charts. This ship is generating more power than our entire fusion reactor. And that's just what I can detect on the surface. Sarah stared at the alien ship. This was what they had all hoped for and feared. First contact with an alien species. But nothing in their training had prepared them for something this massive and obviously powerful. "Are they trying to communicate?" she asked. Communications Officer Rodriguez shook his head. "Nothing, Captain. Complete radio silence." "But..." He paused and checked his instruments again. "They're definitely scanning us. I can detect multiple sensor sweeps hitting our hull. Can we talk to them? I can try standard first contact protocols. Mathematical sequences, prime numbers, peaceful intentions. Do it." Rodriguez began broadcasting on all frequencies. He sent out simple mathematical patterns that any intelligent species should recognize. Then he transmitted images showing the basic structure of atoms and the solar system. Finally, he broadcast recordings of human music and art. The alien ship's response was immediate and terrifying. Energy began building along its hull. Weapon ports opened like the eyes of a giant predator. The space around the massive vessel started to glow with contained power. "Captain," Dr. Park said urgently, "they're powering up weapons. Energy readings are increasing exponentially. I think they're about to fire." Sarah felt time slow down. In the space of a few seconds, humanity's greatest dream had become its worst nightmare. First contact was about to become first blood. "Evasive maneuvers," she ordered. "All power to engines." But even as the words left her mouth, she knew it was useless. The Defiant was a science vessel, not a warship. They had no weapons and limited defensive capabilities. Against a ship that size, they were completely helpless. The alien vessel fired. Beams of pure energy erupted from its weapon ports. The plasma bolts were beautiful and deadly, like captured lightning thrown across space. They struck the Defiant with the force of a small star. The ship shook violently. Everyone on the bridge was thrown to the floor. Lights flickered and sparks flew from damaged control panels. The smell of burning electronics filled the air. "Hull breach on decks 7 and 8, Williams reported as he pulled himself back to his station. "Emergency containment fields are holding." "Damage report," Sarah called out. "Hull integrity at 90%, Dr. Park said with surprise in his voice. "Captain, that's impossible. Those weapons should have vaporized us." Sarah looked at the readings on her screen. The alien weapons had struck them with enough energy to destroy a small moon. Yet somehow, they were still alive. "The hull plating," Dr. Park continued, his voice filled with wonder. "It's not just intact. It's actually denser than before. The energy from their weapons seems to have strengthened our armor." Engineer Rodriguez was checking his own systems. "Captain, the graphene titanium composite is behaving in ways we never expected. It's absorbing the energy and redistributing it throughout the hull matrix. The structure is actually becoming more stable." Sarah stared at the data. The Defiant's experimental hull had been designed to withstand micrometeorite impacts during long space flights. Nobody had imagined it would be proof against alien weapons. On the alien ship, she could imagine the confusion. They had fired their most powerful weapons at what appeared to be a primitive vessel. Yet their target was still intact. The alien ship fired again. This time with even more power. Again the Defiant shook. Again the lights flickered. But when the energy faded, they were still there. Still alive. Still impossibly intact. "Hull integrity now at 95%, Dr. Park reported in amazement. "Captain, their weapons are actually making us stronger." Through the view screen, Sarah could see the massive alien vessel. She imagined the panic that must be spreading through its crew. Their overwhelming advantage had just become meaningless. But she also knew that this alien ship represented an entire civilization. A civilization that had just tried to destroy them without any attempt at communication. If there was one ship this powerful, there were probably thousands more. Rodriguez, she said quietly, are we still transmitting to Earth? Yes, Captain. Everything is being recorded and sent back through the quantum communication array. Good. Make sure they get everything. Every scan, every weapon signature, every detail about this encounter. Sarah looked back at the alien ship. It was still there, still massive, still dangerous. But for the first time since this encounter began, she felt a spark of hope. Humanity had always survived by adapting. By turning disadvantages into advantages. By refusing to give up when the odds were impossible. Today, in the depths of space, that tradition would continue. The alien ship was preparing to fire again. But Sarah Chen was no longer afraid. She was angry. And she was about to show these aliens exactly what humans were capable of when they were pushed too far.
Trust me, I know how money works. You want to make a lot of money, champ. You gotta work your ass off.
Welcome to Jenny's Voice Library, where the perfect voice for your project is only a couple of clicks away.
Commander ZYX Mora could not believe what his instruments were telling him. He ran the diagnostics for the 5th time in 2 minutes. The results were always the same. Admiral Kextera, he called across the bridge of the Eternal Dominion. Our weapons are functioning perfectly. Full power output. Direct hits on target. But the alien vessel shows no damage. Admiral Kextera stared at the small ship on her main screen. It looked so fragile compared to her massive battleship. The hull appeared to be made of simple metal. No energy shields were visible. No defensive systems that she could recognize. Yet it had survived 3 direct hits from their most powerful plasma cannons. Fire again, she ordered. Maximum power. All forward batteries. The Eternal Dominion unleashed everything it had. 20 plasma cannons fired at once. The combined energy was enough to crack the surface of a small planet. The beam struck the human ship and lit up space like a tiny star. When the light faded, the small vessel was still there. Impossible, ZYX Mora whispered. Our sensors show the target actually got stronger after that attack. On the human ship, Dr. James Park was having the same reaction. He stared at his readings in complete amazement. Captain Chen, he said slowly, I need to tell you something incredible. Our hull isn't just surviving these attacks. It's getting better with each hit. Sarah looked at the data on her screen. The numbers seemed like science fiction, but they were real. Explain that to me in simple terms, Doctor. The graphene titanium composite was designed to be flexible. When micrometeorites hit it during space travel, the material spreads the impact across the entire hull. But these alien weapons are hitting us with pure energy instead of physical objects. Dr. Park pulled up a diagram on his screen. The energy is being absorbed into the crystalline structure of the hull plating. Instead of damaging it, the energy is making the atomic bonds stronger. We're literally being upgraded by their attacks. Engineer Rodriguez looked up from his console. Captain, there's more. The energy we're absorbing isn't just making the hull stronger. It's charging our systems. Our power levels are higher than they've ever been. Sarah felt a mix of amazement and worry. Their ship was becoming more powerful with each alien attack, but they were still outnumbered and outgunned. The alien vessel was massive and probably had weapons they hadn't seen yet. On the Eternal Dominion, panic was beginning to spread through the crew. Admiral Kextera had served in dozens of battles. She had destroyed entire fleets. She had never encountered an enemy that grew stronger when attacked. Deploy gravitational pulse weapons, she ordered. ZYX Mora's eyes went wide. Admiral, those weapons can collapse small moons. Are you sure? That ship should not exist. Our most advanced weapons cannot even scratch it. We need to try everything. The Eternal Dominion's hull opened to reveal a weapon that looked like a black crystal. Energy began building around it, but this energy was different. It bent space itself. Stars in the background began to shift and waver as gravity itself was weaponized. Gravitational pulse ready, ZYX Mora reported. Fire. The weapon discharged with a sound that seemed to come from inside everyone's head. A wave of twisted space-time rushed toward the human ship. This wasn't just an energy weapon. It was an attack on the basic forces that held matter together. On the Defiant, every alarm on the ship began screaming at once. "Captain," Dr. Park shouted over the noise, "massive gravitational distortion incoming. This isn't like their other weapons. This could tear us apart at the atomic level." Sarah gripped her chair as the ship began to shake. But something strange was happening. Instead of being crushed by the gravitational pulse, the Defiant seemed to be riding it like a wave. "What's happening to our engines?" she asked. Rodriguez checked his instruments and his face went pale. "Captain, our gravity drive is activating." "But that's impossible. We don't have enough power to run it." The gravity drive had been an experimental system. It was designed to manipulate gravitational fields for propulsion, but it required enormous amounts of energy. They had only tested it once, and it had nearly overloaded their entire power grid. "The alien weapon," Dr. Park said with sudden understanding. "It's not just attacking us with gravity. It's feeding power directly into our gravity drive." Sarah watched in amazement as her ship began to move in ways that shouldn't be possible. The gravitational pulse that was meant to destroy them was instead powering their most advanced system. "The drive is stabilizing," Rodriguez reported. "Captain, we now have full control over local gravitational fields." "It's the adrenaline," she said. "Humans have always performed better under pressure." "It's more than that," Dr. Park replied. "Our brains are processing information at rates that shouldn't be possible. Our reaction times are faster than any other species on record. Captain, I don't think the aliens have ever encountered anything like us." Meanwhile, Emperor Vexnal was receiving reports that filled him with dread. His scientists had been analyzing the data from the battle, and their conclusions were terrifying. "Your Majesty," reported Chief Scientist Kexdal, "we have completed our analysis of the alien species. They are unlike anything in our databases." "Explain," the Emperor commanded. "First, their technology. It appears primitive, but it operates on principles we do not understand. Their ship's hull seems to be designed specifically to absorb and redirect energy attacks. Their propulsion system manipulates gravity in ways our best physicists say should be impossible." The scientist paused, looking nervous. "Continue," the Emperor ordered. "But Your Majesty, the technology is not the most concerning aspect. It's the beings themselves. They are adapting in real time. Learning from each attack. Improving their defenses faster than we can improve our attacks. And their physical capabilities." He shuddered. "They are surviving forces that would kill most sentient species instantly." Emperor Vexnal felt something he had not experienced in 2 centuries of rule, genuine fear. "How is this possible? How did our scouts miss an entire species this advanced?" "Your Majesty, I don't think they are more advanced than us. I think they are something else entirely. Something our science cannot explain." On the Defiant, Rodriguez was discovering just how right the alien scientist was. As he worked to repair systems damaged in the battle, he found himself combining human and alien technology in ways that should have been impossible. "Captain," he called out excitedly, "I've figured out how to integrate their energy signatures into our systems. We can actually use their weapons to charge our own equipment." "How did you figure that out so quickly?" Dr. Park asked. Rodriguez shrugged. "I don't know. It just made sense. Like the solution was obvious once I looked at the problem the right way." Sarah realized what was happening. Humans didn't just adapt to new situations. They innovated. They found solutions that others couldn't see. They turned problems into opportunities. That's when the new alarm started sounding. "Captain," Williams reported, his voice tight with stress, "massive contact approaching. It's the size of a small moon." On the main screen, something appeared that defied description. The planet killer was a weapon so large it had its own gravitational field. Its dark hull was covered with weapon ports that glowed like stars. It was death itself, given form and purpose. "Dear God," Dr. Park whispered. Sarah looked at the approaching nightmare and felt her crew's eyes on her. They were waiting for her to give them hope. To find a solution that didn't exist. But as she stared at the planet killer, Sarah felt something unexpected. Not fear, but anger. These aliens had attacked them without provocation. They had escalated from normal weapons to planet destroyers. They thought that bigger meant better. They were about to learn that humans thought differently. "Rodriguez," she said calmly, "how much energy can our systems handle now? With all the upgrades from their attacks?" "Captain, we're running at about 300% of our original capacity." "And our gravity drive?" "Fully charged and ready, Captain." Sarah smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. "Then let's show them what happens when you corner a human." The planet killer moved through space like a dark moon of death. Admiral Kextera watched from the bridge of the Eternal Dominion as the massive weapon approached the tiny human ship. She felt both relief and sadness. Relief that this nightmare would finally end. Sadness that they had been forced to use their most terrible weapon against what appeared to be explorers. "Admiral," Commander ZYX Mora reported, "the planet killer is in position. They are requesting permission to fire." Kextera looked at the human vessel one last time. It still looked so small and fragile. Even after everything that had happened, part of her couldn't believe this little ship had defeated her entire fleet. "Permission granted," she said quietly. On the planet killer, weapons that could crack worlds began to charge. The massive ship's hull glowed with barely contained energy. Space itself seemed to bend around the enormous vessel as its gravitational generators prepared to fire. Captain Sarah Chen watched the approaching doom on her main screen. She had seen the data on this weapon. It could destroy planets. It could collapse stars. Against something like this, even their improved hull would be meaningless. But Sarah was not thinking about defense. She was thinking about something Chief Engineer Rodriguez had said earlier. Something about their gravity drive being fully charged. "Rodriguez," she called out, "our gravity drive. Can it create a controlled gravitational field?" "Yes, Captain. That's how it works. We manipulate local gravity to move the ship." "No, I mean something bigger. Something much bigger." Rodriguez looked confused for a moment, then his eyes went wide. "Captain, are you asking if we can create a black hole?" "Can we?" "Theoretically, yes. If we overload the gravity drive and focus all our power into a single point." He paused, running calculations in his head. "Captain, that would destroy us too." "Not if we do it right," Sarah said. She was thinking faster than she ever had in her life. The solution was dangerous, maybe impossible, but it was the only chance they had. "Dr. Park," she continued, "our hull has been absorbing energy all during this battle. How much power are we storing?" Dr. Park checked his instruments. "Captain, we're holding more energy than our reactors could produce in a year. But if we release it all at once, we create our own weapon," Sarah finished. "Rodriguez, I need you to reconfigure the gravity drive. Instead of using it for propulsion, we're going to use it to focus all our stored energy into a single gravitational collapse." Rodriguez stared at her. Captain, you're talking about creating a miniature black hole. The math barely works. One mistake and we get pulled in with everything else. Can you do it? Rodriguez was quiet for a moment. Then he smiled. It was the same smile humans had worn when they first looked at the stars and decided to reach for them. Captain, I can do it. Give me 2 minutes. On the planet Killer, the final preparations were complete. The weapon that had destroyed 3 worlds was ready to fire. Its captain, a veteran of 100 battles, gave the order that would end the threat of the unknown species. Fire. The planet Killer unleashed destruction on a scale that defied imagination. Energy enough to boil oceans struck the space where the human ship waited. The blast lit up half the solar system. But something impossible happened. Instead of being vaporized, the human ship seemed to swallow the attack. The Defiant's hull, already strengthened by dozens of previous attacks, absorbed the planet Killer's weapon like a sponge absorbing water. Now, Rodriguez! Sarah shouted. The chief engineer pressed a button that should have been impossible to press. Every safety system on the ship screamed warnings. Every regulation they had ever learned said this was suicide. Rodriguez pressed it anyway. The Defiant's gravity drive overloaded in exactly the way Rodriguez had calculated. All the energy they had absorbed during the battle, including the massive blast from the planet Killer, was focused into a single point in space. Reality broke. A black hole formed between the human ship and the planet Killer. It was small at first, no bigger than a marble. But it grew quickly as it fed on the energy around it. The planet Killer, designed to be an unstoppable force, suddenly found itself facing something it could not fight. Gravity. The massive weapon tried to escape, but its own enormous size became its weakness. The black hole pulled at it with irresistible force. Impossible, Admiral Kextera whispered as she watched the Empire's greatest weapon being slowly consumed by forces beyond her understanding. The planet Killer's hull began to stretch and distort as it was pulled toward the black hole. Its massive engines fired at maximum power, but they could not overcome the gravitational collapse the humans had created. Piece by piece, the moon-sized weapon was torn apart and consumed. On the Defiant, Sarah watched in amazement as their desperate plan actually worked. The black hole was stable, controlled, and limited in size. After consuming the planet Killer, it began to fade as Rodriguez had predicted. Captain, Dr. Park reported in wonder, the gravitational collapse is dissipating. We did it. We actually did it. The remaining Imperial ships, seeing their ultimate weapon destroyed by what they thought was a primitive vessel, made a decision that would echo through galactic history. They ran. Admiral Kextera gave the order to retreat with shame burning in her hearts. Her fleet, designed to conquer worlds, fled from a single small ship crewed by beings they could not understand. As the Imperial ships disappeared into hyperspace, Sarah looked around her bridge. Her crew had done the impossible. They had faced the greatest military force in the galaxy and won. But she knew this was only the beginning. The aliens would be back. They would bring more ships, bigger weapons, different strategies. They would not underestimate humanity again. Rodriguez, she said, start collecting the debris from that battle. I want our people back on Earth to study every piece of alien technology we can find. Already on it, Captain. Dr. Park, full analysis of everything that happened. How our hull improved, how we absorbed their energy, how our gravity drive worked. Everything. Yes, Captain. Sarah looked at the star field ahead of them. Somewhere out there was Earth. Home. And somewhere else was an alien empire that now knew humanity existed. The first battle was over. Humanity had won. But the war was just beginning. On the Imperial capital world, Emperor Vexenal stared at the reports from Admiral Kextera. His greatest fleet had been defeated by a single ship. His most powerful weapon had been destroyed by beings who shouldn't have existed. For the first time in his long reign, he felt true fear. Fear of a species that could not be catalogued, could not be predicted, and could not be defeated by conventional means. He looked at the empty space in the Imperial database where information about these humans should have been. Soon, that space would be filled. But not with data about a conquered species. It would be filled with warnings about the one enemy the Empire could not defeat. The beings who turned every disadvantage into an advantage. The species that grew stronger when attacked. The people who refused to surrender even when facing impossible odds. Humanity had announced itself to the galaxy. And the galaxy would never be the same.